With President Biden signing the debt ceiling bill over the weekend, some House Republicans who did not vote for it have voiced their discontent with Speaker Kevin McCarthy and the future of his role. Appearing on Face the Nation Sunday, however, Louisiana Republican Congressman Garrett Graves, a key negotiator in those debt ceiling negotiations, said that he thinks McCarthy won't have any issue holding on to the gavel.
I'll tell you right now, Speaker McCarthy's position is absolutely safe. He is going to continue delivering wins for the country, changing the direction of Washington and being more representative of the priorities of Americans across the country.
And CBS News congressional correspondent Nikole Killion joins us now from Capitol Hill, where, Nikole, I feel like you have lived there over the past couple of weeks. I hope you did manage to get some sleep over the weekend. Amazing, amazing work covering all of this. So we heard from Garrett Graves there, but what are some other Republicans, especially in the House Freedom Caucus, saying about the speaker? Is there a real threat to his speakership?
Well, I would note I've heard from other McCarthy allies who've kind of echoed what Congressman Graves said there and don't really feel that the speaker's job is in any danger. That being said, in terms of many members of the House Freedom Caucus, for now, they seem to be holding their fire. There was some talk about holding discussions over this so-called motion to vacate, which, of course, is the mechanism that would enable any one member to force a vote of no confidence against the speaker. We do know that Congressman Chip Roy, who did oppose this debt limit bill and who was very vocal about his opposition, said on a radio show last week that he intends to meet with Speaker McCarthy at some point this week, although my sense with that is that it is probably more to smooth things over than to try to agitate the situation further. So that being said, I think the speaker feels relatively confident in his job at the moment, although certainly this threat always persists anytime there's a major policy disagreement like what we witnessed during the debt limit. But certainly the speaker continuing to make the rounds defending this debt limit deal that he helped negotiate with the president.
So with all of that behind us, at least for now, there are other things on the congressional to-do list. One of them, at least for House Republicans, is House Oversight Committee Chairman James Comer says that he's going to move forward to hold FBI Director Chris Wray in contempt of Congress on Thursday for refusing to hand over a document related to President Biden. Can you kind of tell us what Comer's doing here? What's going on with this investigation?
Yeah, well, this is a pretty significant move on his part. There was an FBI briefing today here at the Capitol where both Chair Comer and Ranking Member Jamie Raskin had a chance to view this document that the chairman alleges is evidence or reflects a potential bribery scheme involving then Vice President Joe Biden. So I did ask him if he's seen this document, why does he still need it in hand, and why is he still moving forward with contempt later this week? Take a listen to what he told me.
Remember, the main reason they're not wanting to make this public is because they're concerned about the source, the highly credible, and I haven't read that in a lot of outlets, the highly credible source that's been with the Bureau since the Obama administration.
Remember, what we're talking about here is a confidential human source reporting a conversation with someone else. So we're talking about is secondhand hearsay.
So again, this document reflects some information that was provided by a source. Part of the reason, of course, there's concern about turning it over to the committee is, of course, because it could potentially jeopardize the identity of this source. That is why the FBI redacted the document, and that was a concern expressed by Congressman Raskin. Congressman Raskin did tell me that Democrats will continue to resist these efforts to try to move forward with contempt of Congress against the FBI director. He wouldn't tip his hand as to what procedural moves, if any, Democrats on the committee may take if this moves forward on Thursday. But certainly it is a concern. And even Speaker McCarthy has said that he is open to the idea of holding a full House vote in respect to contempt of Congress against the FBI director. So it is an issue that is unlikely to go away, but one certainly where Democrats are opposed, but Republicans, in this case, determined to move forward.
Yeah, we'll certainly keep an eye on that. Meanwhile, the House is voting on bills regarding gas stoves. Nikole, just really quickly, what's going on here? Why is this an issue important to Republicans?
You know, this was an issue that riled a number of conservatives earlier this year when CPSC Commissioner Richard Trumka suggested that gas stoves should be banned. So now the House moving forward with 2 pieces of legislation to prevent any type of ban with respect to gas stoves. So more to come on that.
All right, Nikole Killion covering it all for us. We appreciate your time. Thank you so much for your reporting.